Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our second iLead of the semester. I'm Kathy Hawks, Associate Dean for External Relations and Global Programs. Welcome. Before we turn to our main event, two things you need to know about our session today. Chat is disabled, and we will be taking questions throughout. So please use the Q&A function, and we will get to as many of them as possible in the last 15 minutes of our session. Now it is my honor to introduce Monica Lee Foley, Chief of Staff for the NASA Johnson Space Center. Monica is a technical integrator for human spaceflight programs. Currently, she's applying her expertise to meet NASA's bold challenge of landing the first woman on the moon and the first human on Mars. Monica has spent 2 decades on low Earth mitigation, human orbit mitigation, and has executed over 3,000 hours in mission control as an International Space Station flight controller, specializing in electrical power systems. And she is the first to earn 3 electrical power flight controller certifications. Monica has served as a contracting officer, negotiating and managing Russian space contracts valued at over $4.4 billion, the largest international contract at NASA. She has published research that is used in atomic and nuclear studies and has been awarded NASA's Exceptional Achievement Medal. Prior to NASA, she worked as a contract consultant at Ernst & Young in Montreal, Canada, mitigating banking and corporate risk. Monica is an avid STEM advocate, a public speaker, and supporter of numerous nonprofits. She also mentors youth and girls throughout various affiliations. At the age of 21, Monica earned a Bachelor of Science in Physics from Southern University and A&M College. She also holds an MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management. We are so happy to welcome you home, Monica, and for you to be here with us. Now I'll turn it over to you, Dean Dave, to get our conversation started.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thanks for your leadership of the iLead series and for your leadership of external relations and global programs for MIT Sloan. And Monica, welcome back. This is so great to welcome you to the MIT Sloan School. And you're here with just something over 110 fellow Sloanies. I can't imagine that they're more excited than I am to be with you. I've been so looking forward to this session, and we'll get started in a second, but I just want to say welcome.
Thank you, Dean David. It is my honor and my privilege to come back home. MIT will forever be in my heart and in my thoughts, and it is always, always my honor to come and be a part of the family again.
But we have courses for you to teach, so we'll pursue that offline. But for the moment, we have this time together in a series that, again, we're all looking forward to.
Wonderful.
So, I mean, you know that you have an iconic role in an iconic organization. Kids around the country, kids around the world grow up imagining themselves in space flight, being astronauts, being part of an organization that makes all of that possible. It seems like a dream. It is, for so many, something that they would only imagine, and you're actually in the heart of it and have been for some time. And so maybe we could start with, how did this happen? What's, a little bit of, if you like, the origin story for you, and how NASA came to be.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is a dream come true. And I know that so many little kids think about this in their youth and their childhood, but I also fear that not enough dream about it and think that it is something that they can obtain. So that really is my life's work, is to engage children and get them excited about STEM and STEM careers and all that can bring. So I have always had an affinity for the sciences and mathematics. I've always loved it. Majored in physics in my undergrad, and interesting story of how that came about. So I left high school, literally left high school after the 11th grade because I had enough credits. I didn't need to stay my senior year. That's another story of encouraging children to become who they are despite other people's biases. My high school counselor said, "Oh, you can't skip your senior year. You're going to miss the senior prom." And had I listened to her, then probably the sheer, if you believe in coincidence, I think it was fate of how I even became a physics major, may have never occurred. I happened to be walking on the campus during a summer semester after leaving from high school in the 11th grade. And I was walking past the physics building and a student came out and he was joking, "Hey, anybody want to major in physics? They're giving away full scholarships. Nobody wants that." And I thought, oh, what? Yeah, absolutely. I want that, right? Because my plan, of course, I had a plan was I was going to go in, major in nursing and Latin and move on to medical school. But when I went in and I spoke to the director of the College of Sciences and Physics, specifically that department, he asked my GPA. I got records to him and he said, "Absolutely full ride if you'll take it." 1000% yes. And so that's how I ended up with a bachelor's in physics and I have zero regrets about that. So.
So I love that story because it is a reminder of like randomness, chance matters. But if you don't mind my saying so, it's also a story that being prepared matters. I mean, you were ready to do, and being willing to jump, to dive in. And all of those three parts are a bit of your story and lots of other people's stories
Absolutely.
also.
Absolutely.
So you were a physics major and then NASA hired you as chief of staff. Is that pretty
No,
much?
actually, I was a physics major, and then I worked for it. It was a company called the United Space Alliance, which was born of Lockheed Martin, the entity Lockheed Martin, and a Boeing entity to manage the space shuttle program and human space operations for NASA in Houston, Texas, so Johnson Space Center. So I started off as a contract employee and a flight controller. So my job right out of college was to work in the Mission Control Center, managing the electrical power system. And I spent many years there, 15 years. I converted to a civil servant, still performing the same duties, and I did other roles. I moved into some leadership responsibility, team leads, et cetera, et cetera. But I still loved Mission Control Center. So I did that job in tangent. So I moved on to other roles and I still maintain my proficiency and certification. So I would work console over the weekends and the latter parts of those 15 years. And until I just said, okay, I'm going to make the leap. I'm tired of the shift work, but my love and my passion for it has never died. So moved from there, eventually became the lead contract negotiator for the Russian Space Agency contracts that are held with the US government and NASA. And I did that for a little over 5 years, maybe close to 6 years. Incredible experience. I don't think anything quite prepares you for that, yet everything does prepare you for that. Science is easy, people are hard. And all of the little nuggets that you learn along the way make you successful in that. Understanding risk mitigation, understanding relationships, and taking care of people.
So speaking of people being hard, you had a fair amount of responsibility, I think it's safe to say, at a young age. And coming into those, settings where maybe not everyone knew you in advance, I kind of wonder what that was like. I mean, both for you maybe as kind of having the confidence to do those things, and also just how people reacted or perceived you. Can you say a little bit about kind of that coming of ageness?
Yeah, so graduating at 21 and super young, walking into a work environment that's predominantly white male dominated, and these folks, they keep these jobs for years. I tend to say generations and generations. NASA's not a place where, as you see now, the trend is you work 3-7 years and you hop. People stay for 40, 50, 60 years in a career. So I remember my first day of work reporting to my manager, and I stand in his office door and I say, "Hi, I'm Monica Lee." He never looks up. He just does not look up from his desk, right? And said, "Oh, it's my first day. I'm the new power system, blah, blah, blah." And he looks and he's puzzled. And I later found out that he thought I was Asian when he hired me, because he didn't remember all of the all of the faces with the interviews. He just remembered the qualifications and the name, and that's how it happened. And so later on, same day, I'm in the hallway, and a gentleman comes up to me and he gives me his coffee order. And I am like, well, what's happening? Are we getting lattes? And he says, aren't you the new admin? I'm like, no, I'm not the new admin. I'm the new engineer. But that's great. If we're ordering, I'll take a latte. And so it's really just having really the confidence in, like, I belong in this place. I just have to help you see that and persevere.
It seems also you used a bit of humor along the way as well, just to, keep things going, or make people feel comfortable.
Absolutely, because oftentimes people don't really recognize, they cannot self-identify with the behaviors that they are exhibiting. So it lends to no one's merit to make that, a contentious thing, unless it is an intentional thing. But most times I think it's not. And people are people.
So you moved, quite smartly through a set of growing leadership responsibilities, and as much as you did show confidence early on, my guess is that, like many people, your sense of yourself as a leader grew through some of those transition points or experiences. And I wonder if you could talk about growing a little as a person who's developing as a leader in these settings.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm starting so young in specifically that environment. I had to learn to meter my personality. It's big. There's a lot. It's a big personality, right? And once I put on shoes, I'm kind of a tall girl, and that's a lot for some people to take in, all of that packaging. And so I've had to learn over the years when to be the dove and when to be the eagle.
When do you need to be the dove? When do you need to be the eagle? How do you know?
So yeah. So whatever is going to be results driven, right? It depends on the matter, and it depends on the scope of work. When it comes to those things of safety, maintaining crew life, maintaining my vehicle, I need to be the eagle. I need to come in strong and speak from the data, right? When it comes to relationships and building trust and establishing teams, I need to be the dove. And then there are times when you mix it up and you are a combination of the two, but understanding smartly that there is a divine time for each of those is what has helped me over the years.
It feels also, listening to you, that part of maybe being the dove in some settings might be a role for listening and kind of absorbing other people's perspectives. And I suspect that was a part of what, being able to move forward required as well.
Everybody wants to feel, Dean, that they have a voice and a choice, and that their opinions matter. Technically, we can debate it, and there's a right and a wrong, or there's some compromise in the middle. You can't typically debate people's feelings or their expressions. And so you have to respect that at all levels, from a new hire up to senior executive leadership. You have to take care of your people.
So this is, I don't know if there is such a thing for you, but was there a moment that kind of felt to you like a difficult moment or a challenging moment or a leadership moment that kind of comes to mind that either helped shape you as a leader or challenged your sense of how you develop further as an effective leader? It might be just moving from one job to another where there's new responsibilities, but I wonder about that sense of kind of, you were here and then you're doing,
Right. I have often felt that as I have moved from one level or position to the other, in some regards, you start over with proving yourself and your worth to your new team. Yes, sure, you were good at that, but but this is a new thing. This is a different thing. And how do you measure up there? I believe MIT helped me to understand the phrase of the imposter syndrome, where you're in this environment and you know that you're capable and you're competent, but even you have a moment of self-doubt, right? Because you look around the room and you say, well, these folks have 40 plus additional years of experience. And if you combine all of the experience, or they don't look like me, or their school was this, that really that's the challenge that I think most, if not all, leaders will experience at some point or another. In that moment, you have to stop and reflect on how you've accomplished what you've accomplished to get to where you are, and do not allow yourself to be confined by anyone's limited perceptions of who you are. Every day is a day to become a better version of you. So if every day you're striving to be the best you, and then the next day you're planning to be the best version of you, it's a win-win.
So one of the things I did want to be sure to ask you about is MIT Sloan, and maybe if you have thoughts about your experience at the school, or in the ways that it's affected you in the time since. And I also wonder if you keep up with any Sloanies from your period, but anything you'd like to say about this?
Absolutely. MIT was my place of metamorphosis. It's the place where I feel like I've grown the most, even compared to my 24 years at NASA and in that environment. It's the place where I have felt the safest. It is the place that I have felt that they wanted me as much as I wanted them. And you can't pay for that. I would have never expected or anticipated, or I would have even hoped for that. But MIT was my dream come true that I didn't even realize existed as a want or a necessity. This team does a phenomenal job of Joe and her team of creating a cohort, bringing together a cohort that will not only learn from one another, but will grow together. And I keep in touch with nearly everyone. We have social media accounts and chats that every day someone says something, and we celebrate one another and we help one another. And I don't see that ever changing. As folks right now are trying to strategize for what the future of work looks like, we're helping one another. It's lessons learned. It's sharing strategies and logistics and profiles. And man, this school this has been the highlight of my 44 years on this earth, without a doubt. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is an Institute of Technology, and let me ask you about. You talked about work of the future. That's one way that things are changing. Technology is changing in so many ways. Can you talk a little bit about those dimensions of change in the responsibilities that you have now? Does the future of technology make a difference to you? If so, how do you think about it?
Well, yes, 1000%. Which is one of the reasons why I chose MIT for my MBA. I needed the foundation of an institution that understood the importance of technology to me, not only in my role, but just the core of what I love to engage in and what I want to see grow and flourish. But, if NASA wants to remain a player and a leader on the frontier of space exploration, we have to embrace innovative technologies. And we do want that, and we will do that. We cannot just leverage the success of what happened during the days of Space Shuttle or the spacecraft provided by the Russians. Elon Musk has partnered with us. We are partnering with commercial entities to stand these legs up on US soil. I oftentimes hear folks say, How do you feel about your competitor? Well, we're kind of paying them. So I don't know of anyone that pays their competition to be successful. So it is 1000% a partnership that will enable us. So as the private entities are gaining their experience and their expertise in launching humans, which is completely different from launching cargo, which they've been doing for quite some time, that will then allow us to create new markets and new economies moving forward, going further into deep space exploration. And we need to develop the technologies that will get us there and sustain human life on Mars and beyond, to allow us to mine the moon and understand how that will impact the quality of life on Earth. So it's technology is everything. We have to continue to grow, and we can't just rest on the laurels of yesterday's successes.
This may be a little bit in the weeds, but you did mention your partners / the commercial entities or enterprises. Do you worry sometimes about relying on too few of them, or do you feel like that's growing in terms of the number of they certainly compete with each other, and so those organizations that would like to be your partners, can I ask how you think about that?
Right. Yeah. So I don't think that there are too few at the moment. We've intentionally selected the number of companies that we have. Like Boeing is planning their flight test for later this year. Sierra Nevada is designing a vehicle. So there are two major and two additional entities that are working on this spacecraft. You don't need 12 companies that are going to launch humans to space, because number one, it is still expensive. And it is not an easy technology, and it's not an easy feat. It has to be proven before we will launch a human on board. So there aren't, I will say, gangbusters of companies with the funds, right, and the means to go off and do this. There are expansions from this economy that we need to grow, and so we need to bring in more entities that are thinking of those mechanisms that will help us to explore deeper.
I think it's so fascinating because so many of the big challenges that humanity faces increasingly are going to need to be, if it would be fair to call what you're doing a public-private partnership kind of model. And, partnerships doesn't mean everybody's hugging all the time. But
Right.
if you look at the future of energy and the future of other aspects of sustainability, it feels like the landscape that you're exploring or that you're creating
Right.
is something that others can learn from, even far afield from space travel.
Absolutely, we're fine. We're fine being the template for goodness, right?
Yes, yeah. So can I come back to space travel? And you don't need to persuade me, but there are lots of people who wonder about the investment that this country and that humanity is making in space exploration. And I suspect you get asked a question along those lines pretty often. And so can we hear what you say about that?
Yes, absolutely. I do, from second graders on up, listening to the opinions of their parents, and then they challenge me when I go to their elementary school, but it's great. It's fine. I can talk this all day long. Yeah, so the whole purpose of space exploration is so that human life on Earth will benefit. The technologies that are birthed from these missions and these long durations assignments help us to not only understand medically how the human body can heal in developing medications. The touch and the reach of what we have learned has gone on for many decades, from MRI technology and CAT scans, and how physicians get a path to healing a patient, to Mylar, to Blu-ray lenses on sunglasses, to growing plants in space, understanding when you have limited resources, how do you affect crop yields? That helps us as a human race, for those living in localities where clean water and good soil is not readily available. It's the translation of these technologies, or we call it technology transfers, that makes this program pay for itself.
That's beautifully said. when you so you really are of MIT. And sometimes at MIT, it's a place where there's science over here and there's engineering over here. And, if you would permit me to suggest that science is kind of the work of trying to figure out something that we don't really understand yet, but we're hoping that we could make something, new become real. And engineering is doing well something that we know we can do.
Right.
And so, like if you think about human travel to another planet, to Mars, is that science or is that engineering? Do you know what I mean? Are we at a point where, what point are we at in making that happen?
So I think it's both, depending on what you're assessing. If you're evaluating it for human conditions and what we will learn that will help human survival, that's very much science. I think if it is learning about the technology, the sustainability, the resources to enable you to get there, that's engineering, right?
Yeah. So in both science and engineering, you have been an advocate for opportunities for young people, especially for young people who sometimes haven't had those opportunities. And can you talk a little bit more about that, maybe for you personally, and also, for the role that NASA wants to play in that regard? But
Yes, it's very personal. I think females make up less than 28% of STEM degrees. That may be as current as of the end of last year. And why is that? It's not that our brains work any differently. We can do this, but representation matters. It's important to me to get out and talk to little girls and let them know that there are living, breathing female scientists today, not just what you've studied in the history books. I love that the movie Hidden Figures came out. That's great. But many, many, many years have passed, and there are so many more of us that are doing this work today. I need them to connect the past with the present, and more importantly, the future. And so I know the new administration wants NASA to intentionally go out and represent STEM in the community. Outreach is important. We have to fuel our scientists of tomorrow. We can't wait to do that tomorrow. We have to do that today. We have to have them have a love and a passion for it. In elementary school, if you begin recruiting senior year of high school, freshman year, folks have already made up their mind of what they have an affinity for and what they want to become. It has to start at a very early age. I will say my niece will be 7 on Sunday. She's already launched her first rocket. She has her favorite t-shirt. It says, "Forget princess, I'll be a rocket scientist." And at graduation, I think she told Joe, "Hey, I'll be at MIT soon." Okay, great. I'll be paying that tuition in the next 10 years or so. But she knows what she wants to become because we've planted the seed, and she believes she will do it, and so she will. And I want to see that for more little girls.
Not to too quickly take you kind of back full circle, but to where we began. You said you had always been interested in science and math and engineering and those kinds of topics. Was that entirely kind of from the inside out, or were there aspects of that that came to you from the outside in, from family or teachers, or is it a little both?
So I think it's really inside out, and it was nourished by my family. I've always been curious as to how things work and why they work the way that they do, taking things apart, trying to put them back together. And my parents did not discourage that. Teachers at an early age, I would say elementary, I don't think that they were that influential. It probably wasn't until my middle school years where I had my first female math teacher, and she was a rock star, right? She made me love it and understand it and embrace it. And as I had more female teachers and professors in chemistry and biology and in physics, it just became natural. The representation reflected that I belonged and I could do that. So that's it. My parents never discouraged it ever. My dad was a Marine, so authority, military man. My mom was an elementary school teacher, reading specialist. So when I said I want to major in physics, they're both like, what? Okay, well, that's fine. You go off and do that. Great job. You can do it. You can do whatever you put your mind to. And that was it. That was the extent.
So we've got a few more minutes before we open it up to 155 people. When you think about fulfillment from the work that you do, can you talk a little bit about what is it that makes the work feel fulfilling? And then I'll ask you a follow-on question about kind of what's next, if you have any senses of, what's next, or is that thinking too far ahead? But let me just start with what you, if there's a good day, what makes it a good day and what makes you fulfilled?
So a good day for me, when I worked in mission control, when I negotiated contracts, it's knowing that I made good decisions that, number one, secured the future of our agency. I kept the crew safe. I was technically competent. I did good work and I caused no harm, right? A good day as a senior leader is very similar, but in a different regard. It is that I am creating a future of innovation and sustainability for not only my center, but for the agency. And I am intentionally bringing together the mission and the vision of the Human Spaceflight Center and the agency at large to the communities around the world. So it doesn't just stop in Houston, and it's not just in the US, but it is in bringing the nations together to pursue space exploration. We can get so much farther. We can go so much farther, so much faster if we do it together. And uniting us for the benefit of humankind is what matters.
Is there something that you're not yet doing that you'd like to do?
You don't know what you don't know, Dean Dave. I don't know.
True that.
Right. So I always want to do more. I always want to have a larger contribution. I don't want to disconnect totally from the technical because that work is important to me. So maybe doing more of that in various ways would be a heart tug for me. I am as much a people person as I am a technical person. So I appreciate both worlds. And then when I layer Sloan, I understand the fundamentals of business. So I believe I've now created a very well-rounded portfolio, not only in academia, but in experience. And I am excited about where that may take me.
Yes. As a leader, how do you know what people think of you? You described yourself just now.
Yeah.
How do you find out what people think of you? So you lead teams of, maybe they just tell you, you're a pretty approachable person, I have to say.
So, besides the 360 feedback, which folks do, you can tell, I think, by your interactions with people, if you are a safe space for them, if they can come to you and say, I have this idea, I don't really know, it's not really vetted, but I think it might work. What do you think? That means they trust me, number one, with honesty. They trust that I will respect their notion, no matter how mature it is, and that I will help them to apply it for a greater good. that matters. That's a good day of winning with people. When my team, or even folks that are not directly on my team, can come to me and we can engage in insightful ways, I'm winning. I'm winning that day.
So those are probably some examples of people who are creative and, probably quite smart and eager to make good things happen. Have you had to fire anyone? And, if you have to make tough decisions, how do you approach that?
So working for the government, it's kind of difficult to fire. You kind of move people around.
I appreciate it.
You move them around into a position that
universities too.
suits them, right? Something that better suits you, right? But I can help people come to the decision if they are a good fit for an environment. Let's talk about your skill set. Let's talk about how you contribute to the team, not just technically, but just how your energy presents on the team. Sometimes there is addition by subtraction, and we often have to have those dialogues, and I'm comfortable with that. You do that in a way that doesn't demean or belittle the person, but you just talk about a fit for the mission, and the requirement of wanting to get things done. I assume that everybody here is here because they want to see NASA and this team and this agency succeed. So let's find a better place where you can contribute.
So I'll just ask you one more question, and it's about having mentors or being a mentor. And then I'll ask, I think Kathy will rejoin us to open it up to the audience.
Right.
But, being helped and helping others.
Absolutely. Hands down, one of the most important tools and resources you will have is a mentor, and then becoming a mentor for someone else. You learn both ways, right? You learn by teaching others, and you learn by watching and observing others and having direct dialogues. Beyond mentorship, advocacy is important. You need to build relationships so that you have someone in the room that if an opportunity presents itself that you could contribute, they think of you, so that you can expand your reach, and your touch, and your level of influence of making good change, good quality contribution. So it matters. No matter what level or stage you are in, you need a mentor and you need to mentor others. It is your duty as a human being occupying space on this earth.
Do you reach out and offer to be a mentor for someone, or do they come to you? And that sometimes
both,
yeah.
right? I will reach up to offer mentorship, and I will reach down, and I will reach across. If I see someone struggling to understand either the culture, technically, of course, that's super easy, but it's more so when you're trying to get someone acclimated to the ways of business. I have extended this to fresh outs, new hires, and astronauts alike. So it doesn't, the range, I don't meter the range in any way, right? Change is difficult. Coming to a new place or being changed in your work assignment, that can be devastating to some people in some ways. And being kind is never a bad thing.
That's something to write down.
Yeah.
Kathy, welcome back.
Thank you. We have a number of questions from our students. Thank you so much for sharing as much as you have so far. And I would say 3 themes I'll take us through is career and leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then space and beyond. So there were a number of questions about advice for women who are early in their STEM career and what you found useful and what advice you might have for them as they think about being successful.
Wonderful. I will say what's most important as an early career is make sure that you are technically sound and competent. You are your own competition. I will never forget that I asked the same first manager who wouldn't look up when I entered his door a couple of years later, like what can I do to be a better engineer, a better employee, a better contributor. And his response to me was, well, when you're as good as the guys, then you've made it. And I thought, are you kidding me right now? So that my standard of success isn't what the guys do. My standard of success is excellence. And if I have to create that bar for someone else to see that, that's fine. I will move the standard, no problem. I encourage you all to do the same. Be the resource in the room that everybody goes to and that they're comfortable going to. Be easy to talk to, be approachable, because you may have the right answer, but if no one wants to hear it from you, you may as well not have it at all.
It's a great point. And so that sort of leads maybe to the next one, and the thing that you value most and how you show up, how that shows up in your leadership style.
Yeah. Ooh, these are great questions. Of course, it's MIT. What did I expect? What I value most, trust. And that's trust in technical ability, in trust as a human being, trust that you will treat me with, equity and decency. That's what matters most.
Right. Well, and then, thinking about your influence in the organization as chief of staff, how do you influence decision makers in that role?
So my boss is Mark Geyer. He's a center director, and he has called me the Geyer Whisperer. And so that is understanding the role that you play, and that can change from moment to moment, project to project. Identifying what communication cues are spoken or unspoken, giving him data in a manner that he can digest. Coming out of Sloan, I was so excited. I had all of these great innovative ideas, but I had to quickly remember that I am back into my culture that, hey, they're no longer the new hires with 24 years of experience. These are the guys that have been doing this work for a very long time. And being able to understand how to market the idea, that matters. So I would say having the data and knowing how to present the data is what makes it effective, right? If it's a whisper in the ear, if it's an email with 24 charts of this is why this works, if it's a brief, have you thought about, so being able to present it so that he will have an appetite to receive, or anyone will have the appetite to receive, is the key to success.
Right. Well, and maybe we can double click on that on your return to NASA after MIT.
Sure.
And thinking about some of the tangible, is there a favorite story that you have about something that you brought back from MIT to NASA, and what was that like?
I think one of the first projects that I worked on was the communication strategy for the center director for the entire workforce, 10, 12,000 people that work there. So Mark Geyer has this vision, and it's called Dare, Unite, Explore, that we will dare to do our work differently and be innovative, and we will unite our teams, contractor, civil servant, international partners, to explore new destinations like now. Like, this is not a thing that we're going to launch in 10 years. We're doing this today, and it starts with the actions that we have today. He does have a director for strategy. But I think what Sloan has enabled me to bring to the table is an understanding of the fundamentals of finance, of people, and of technology. And providing him with, I will say, iterative steps to build that success right out of the door, because I hired on as chief of staff. We graduated in June, early June, and I started late June in this role. So I hit the ground running with handouts that I had from class, right? They worked, and it was innovative. It was a new perspective, a new lens of how to approach, how do you roll out this vision? And so that has been very successful for me in engaging my boss and those that report to him and above. So
That's great. I'm imagining some feedback loops being drawn on a whiteboard
right.
really back in the office. So our students care deeply about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so there's a few questions that relate to that, both in your role and to NASA specifically. So I'll probably start from your role where we were today and your influence there. And maybe the question is, how do you raise concerns of BIPOC staff and how to follow up when you don't see the change that you've asked for?
That's an ongoing, I don't want to say it's a struggle, but it is something that you have to be intentional about every day. And so we have in the center director's office been looking at data and assessing the data for quite some time. And I've done this in my previous roles, where we look at our population and we say that it doesn't appear to be very diverse. And many years ago, I started the conversation and I said, well, you don't have the people here because you do not recruit the people. It starts with recruiting. You go to very specific schools and very specific locations, and there's like 49 other states that we could take a look at that we're not doing, right? And a multitude of other schools that we could take a look at, but we're not doing. So it is engaging, I say, in grassroots efforts to understand why it appears that the biases exist and acknowledging that they do, and have a very real conversation. And I feel that every day that I am successful in my job, I give someone else a reason to believe in someone that looks like me.
Well, that leads very nicely into our next conversation, and I mean into our next question around what do you see as the biggest challenge ahead for women of color in the field, and how might people go into their organizations and address that?
It's, I will say just the organic human bias that we develop over time. I mean, we're not born with it. We get it as a part of our culture and as a part of our experiences, and as a part of what we've been exposed to, what we've been allowed to see and believe about other people. We have to have more candid conversations to get folks comfortable with not only understanding why people think the way that they think, but how that might not be completely accurate. It's strange that it's 2021 and we're still very uncomfortable, and I will say in many ways uneducated about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I shared with Dean Dave an experience in the hallway with an astronaut, and he's trying to ask me the name of another engineer, right? And he goes, she's about, I don't know, 5, so whatever, it's about this tall, kind of long hair, and I'm calling names, and he's like, no. And I said, is she Black? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, there's 2 of us. If you would have led with that, I could have saved 15 minutes of this dialogue in the hallway, right? And it's just, people are very uncomfortable. But we have to engage. We're humans. We have to talk about it. Every species has a communication path. We do also. We need to plug that in, even when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right. Well, and your discussion about humans and working with humans before, there is a question here about these being uncomfortable and questions and conversations to have. And I think you just answered how you approach that. So Thank you. I'll turn now to our space questions and maybe and beyond. Certainly, what's the biggest difference you've noticed in contract negotiations, particularly maybe with Russia versus SpaceX?
Oh God. This is recorded, right? Okay, I'll be careful. No.
We can always go back and edit.
Wow. I mean, negotiating with Russians, just the culture it's completely different, right? The dynamic and it's the employees, I will say they're generational. And by that, I mean, if I'm talking to and Ivan, then likely Ivan's uncle has worked there, his father has worked there. There's a nepotism thing. And so their knowledge that they're bringing to the table and experience spans generations. And oftentimes, specifically in my negotiations, I'm dealing with a monopoly, right? Before SpaceX started to launch human-rated spacecraft, after the shuttle, and before SpaceX, we were solely reliant upon Soyuz with the Roscosmos Space Corporation. So how do you negotiate a bus ticket when there's one bus ride in town? That's it, right? It's difficult, it's challenging. But you find a common ground and you barter for other things that you can offer that they cannot have. I will say the difference is culture. As with SpaceX, I did not work the contracts with SpaceX, so I will put that disclaimer there. But that's a different relationship. That is a partnership, and they are providing a service that we have requested and hired them to provide. With the Russians, we are asking to purchase a seat on a vehicle that we do not own, that they own, and we're asking for a ride. You're buying a bus ticket, basically, a two-way bus ticket. That's what you're doing. For SpaceX, you are enabling a company to create a technology, to create a craft and develop and devise this plan with your oversight. So very different.
That's great. Well, and two questions, hopefully maybe to bring us home here. One is how you like working for NASA. You've spent a lot of years there, and how do you feel about some of the barriers that maybe present themselves in a government entity?
So I've only worked government entities except for my stint with EY, which I did while I was with NASA. I was a contract consultant. That came through a classmate at Sloan. He was a partner there, and he says, Monica, I need you to work. I need some help on risk mitigation for banking. I said, I don't do banking and finance. He says, Monica, risk mitigation is risk mitigation. And I thought, really? And I tried it out for a year and I loved it. And he's right. Again, you have the people component, you have the technical component, and risk is risk at the end of the day, as long as you understand the organization, the community, the field of work. So I have loved working for NASA. That's why I've been there for 24 years, because I believe in the mission of NASA, and I understand how it can contribute to the quality of life, how the technology transfer just goes so far and so deep in the reach is just so profound. It's hard to find that anyplace else. And so I deal with the biases and the challenges every day by proving against it all. Hard does not mean impossible, and so you keep going.
Mm-hmm. Well, and thinking about looking ahead for, what industries and technologies outside of aerospace that maybe intersect with the field are most exciting to you, and why?
This is a good question. Let's see. I love the intersection of the medical community, biopharma. If you think about farming industries, a lot of the science that we perform on orbit on board the space station is about growing plants and nutrition and keeping astronauts, crew members safe when there are limited resources. We are learning a lot about how to serve underserved communities and nations that just do not have the resources that we have. When I think about the robotic arm that's used on the space station, it translates very nicely to how surgical procedures have evolved with robotics. Many of those manipulations are just because of the research and the performance of what we've seen on orbit. This job has prepared me well for whatever industry I may choose to navigate to, because it does all of the hard stuff, it does all of the good stuff, all of the people-y stuff. I'm totally simplifying this, but the international experience and exposure that I've had, even beyond Russia, we have 16 partners that I've worked with with the International Space Station. It's been a unique opportunity, and I am excited about what may be coming in the future.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. I think we've all agreed that this will be chapter 1, and we hope to hear from you over and over again, both in this format and when we can be back on campus. So thank you, Monica and Dean Dave, for such a fun discussion today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And Monica, can I ask you one final question real quickly? This is going to betray how stupid I am, so I'm going to apologize in advance. Behind you, the visual image, is it just like, it could just be where your computer is and there's what's against the wall? Tell me, what is it?
It's just a beautiful piece of art that I fell in love with several years ago. It's calming. To me, it shows the union of beauty. And that's what it symbolizes in my home. So yeah, this is where I work every single day. It's just a reminder that everything that we do is to come together to unify us as a human race, and the beauty of that just reminds me of the earth.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for sharing it with us today as well.
Yes. Please keep coming back. Thanks everyone for gathering for this iLead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes. For the students who will be joining us for the small group discussion, please close out of this session and open the separate Zoom link that was sent. It was great to be with all of you. Take care.